Your update here on El Salvadoran dictator Nayib Bukele's efforts to wage a public PR attack on Senator Van Hollen and Kilmar Abrego Garcia during their latest meeting. So here's the quick background. Yesterday, Van Hollen finally made contact with Garcia in what is nothing short of a heroic act. He posted on Twitter, "I said my main goal of this trip was to meet with Kilmar. Tonight I had that chance. I have called his wife Jennifer to pass along his message of love. I look forward to providing a full update upon my return." Now you'll notice in the photo that there were a couple of glasses of water and coffee. Now here's the tweet posted by El Salvador's dictator, Bukele. Miraculously risen from the death camps and torture, now sipping margaritas with Senator Van Hollen in the tropical paradise of El Salvador. And you'll notice that his photos include what appear to be margaritas. In other words, there's a pretty clear disparity from the first set of photos. Well, we now have an answer as to why from Senator Van Hollen himself.
Now I just want to take a moment. I hadn't planned to do this, but as I was landing on the airplane, I got a transcript of some questions President Trump was asked at the White House today about what I would call Margarita Gate. I don't know if you guys have been following this, but President Bukele, after I met with Kilmar, did this tweet showing us at a table with these two glasses. So here's what happened. When I first sat down with Kilmar, we just had glasses of water on the table. I think maybe some coffee. And as we were talking, one of the government people came over and deposited two other glasses on the table with ice, and I don't know if it was salt or sugar around the top, but they look like margaritas. And if you look at the one they put in front of Kilmar, it actually had a little less liquid than the one in front of me, to try to make it look, I assume, like he drank out of it. Let me just be very clear. Neither of us touched the drinks that were in front of us. And if you want to play a little Sherlock Holmes, I'll tell you how you can know that. So if you look at the video or the picture I sent out from the beginning of our meeting, you'll see there are no glasses on the table. So you'll see in later videos they are on the table. But they made a little mistake. For some people are very careful, right? If you sip out of one of those glasses, some of whatever it was, salt or sugar, would disappear. You would see a gap. There's no gap. Nobody drank any margaritas or sugar water or whatever it is. But this is a lesson into the lengths that President Bukele will do to deceive people about what's going on. And it's also shows the lengths that the Trump administration and the president will go to, because when he was asked about a reporter about this, he just went along for the ride.
In other words, Chris Van Hollen exposed Bukele for his clever little scheme to undermine him and Garcia by planting margaritas for the express purpose of being able to send out exactly the tweet he sent out. And I need everyone to understand that this is what dictators do. They are insecure and weak, and they know that they are in the wrong, so their only goal is to manipulate people with low-rent schemes and tactics like the one that we just saw here. Bukele knows full well what the Supreme Court said. He knows full well that El Salvador wasn't in compliance with international law, on which El Salvador is a signatory itself by preventing Garcia from speaking with his attorney. He knows full well that Garcia did nothing to deserve being sent to this foreign gulag. But dictators are not interested in the truth. They care only about inventing whatever reality is most convenient and then trying to manifest that reality into existence. Bukele and Trump are cut from the exact same cloth. They both know that what's happening is morally wrong, not to mention outright illegal, but any backtracking now would be viewed as weakness, as capitulation. And so it doesn't even matter if they're wrong, because they've already planted their flag, and now their sole job is to reverse engineer every single rationale they can conjure up to justify their position. And we've already heard all of the excuses, like, for example, this one.
As you know, the Supreme Court, after we get out all of the fake news from CNN and all these other people, we won that case 9-0. Mm-hmm. And basically, that's really a decision that will be made by the government of El Salvador, because that's where, I assume that's the one you're talking about.
Yes, he's from El Salvador.
Staying there, and he's from El Salvador. So that's a decision up to El Salvador. But it's interesting because we won that decision 9-0 in the Supreme Court. And if you listen to the news, you wouldn't know that.
Right.
You would really have no
Fair
idea.
enough.
Right. Trump says that he won the Supreme Court case 9-0, which is not true, in that he lost the Supreme Court case 9-0. And again, that betrays the fact that A, he is willing to lie with abandon, and B, he believes his supporters are so stupid they will believe the polar opposite of reality. Or how about this tweet from today from the official White House account? Fixed it for you, New York Times. Oh, and by the way, Chris Van Hollen, he is not coming back. And the Trump administration rewrote the New York Times headline that read, Senator meets with wrongly deported Maryland man in El Salvador, to instead read, Senator meets with deported MS-13 gang member who's never coming back. Only small problem, there is no proof that he is an MS-13 gang member. And granted, if there's proof, then all you gotta do is show it, and I'll be the first one in line to offer you my blessing. But that's the whole issue at hand here. The White House refuses to actually give this person due process, as is required by law, as is required by the most far-right Supreme Court in our lifetimes. Think about it this way. If he was actually a member of a gang, as this White House claims he was, then it should be easy to just show your evidence. Unless, of course, you have no evidence, in which case we're just disappearing people to foreign gulags, which I don't exactly think is popular. And guess what? The majority of Americans agree with me. According to the latest YouGov survey, of all the issues in the political zeitgeist right now, deporting immigrants without criminal convictions to El Salvador to be imprisoned without letting them challenge the deportation in court polls dead last among Americans, with 46% of Americans strongly opposing and 15% somewhat opposing. That's nearly 2/3 of Americans who oppose in some fashion what this administration is doing. Not exactly a home run hill to die on. But again, Trump doesn't care, because the thing about dictators is that they view themselves as being unaccountable to popular pressure. Bukele is spitting in the face of the law because he has dismantled his government's ability to check him. Trump is trying to do the exact same thing right here in the United States of America, right now. So, my message to Americans, left, right, and center, is this. Do you look at El Salvador and yearn for that system of government, where one dictator has carte blanche to flex his muscles at will with zero oversight to be imported here to the United States? Does tossing humans into a max security gulag for life with no due process really feel like the way that you want this country to go? Because this isn't something that Trump wants to do, it is something that he is doing. And despite feeling like he's already unaccountable to popular pressure, he's not. But that popular pressure cannot just come from the left. It has to come from all sides. We need people to speak up from the right and the center as well if we're going to reverse this dangerous trend. A trend that most countries, by the way, do not easily find their way back from. This is not a moment for purity tests or I told you so's as far as the left is concerned. It is a moment to broaden our coalition, to welcome every American into our tent, and to fight back together against the scourge of authoritarianism that is very quickly threatening to overtake this country. We're at a crossroads right now. I would ask everybody out there, but especially those who voted for Trump, when you look back at this moment, when the U.S. was teetering on the brink, can you say that you opted to protect our democracy or that you opted to protect Donald Trump? Because you can do one or the other, but not both. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.